This is North Coast Perspectives. I'm James Faulk. On the one hand, residents of California and Humboldt County remain giddy with the opportunity afforded by the reopening of things. A month ago, most of us were confined to our homes, quarantined and bored with the endless hours we piled up in an effort to outwit and outwait the coronavirus. Those days seem to be long gone. Now we've transitioned to an approach of managed risk. We can go out, get our tasks done, as long as we maintain social distancing and wear a mask. As long as we make sure to scrub our hands early and often with a blisteringly effective cleaner or solvent that has become our most important line of defense against this deadly disease. This week, we hear from a renowned expert in the field who believes these moves have come way too early, and that in the end, we will pay for the rush we're in to get back to normal. The truth of this remains to be seen. Still, the virus hasn't given up its ghost. This week, several states, including California, have reported the highest daily new infection totals since the pandemic began. This grave achievement occurs even as we struggle to open more doors, remove more barriers, and get back on the fast track to our long-cherished American way of life. Humboldt County, for the moment, seems to be doing fine. The outbreak at Alder Bay Assisted Living has been contained, and there's been only 2 new cases reported over this past week. Overall, we've had a total of 106 cases and 4 deaths. It's important to remember, however, that we don't know precisely how all of this will end. 1 week of positive news can be followed by tragedy, an explosion of cases, and seemingly endless death notices. We should be cautious even as we seek to restart our lives. A few extra weeks of freedom is hardly worth the cost of friends, neighbors, and family members falling victim to COVID and possibly losing their lives. Now the headlines. This week, after a massive effort, Eureka Police Department and Uplift Eureka issued a census of homeless people in the city, a document that breaks down the identity and condition of houseless individuals and their needs. Uplift Eureka is a citywide volunteer program meant to help homeless men and women find their way to the types of services that would help get them into jobs and homes. The organization was aided in this effort by the Eureka Police Department's Community Safety and Engagement team. Over the 4-week period, 211 surveys were completed. Each consisted of 35 questions, including demographics, drug and alcohol use, mental and physical health, resource use, life satisfaction, and living situations. Police Chief Steve Watson said the data from this survey provides crucial information needed to support and engage the homeless. Quote, "We understand enforcement will not solve the homeless crisis," Watson said. "Compassionate outreach services are key components in our response," unquote. The 2020 Homeless Survey is the most comprehensive study ever made of Eureka's homeless population. City Councilwoman Leslie Castellano said the survey has made headway in building trust with area homeless.
I just want to, you all probably know, but just express how much, at least the people I've talked to who are houseless have expressed how much they appreciate the support that they receive from you all and how much they feel respected. And my perception of that, and from talking to people, is it inspires people to be part of the community. And so I really appreciate your work in building those bridges in Eureka.
Now the interview. Joining us via the wondrous magic of Zoom, we have Sergeant Leonard LaFrance of the Eureka Police Department, whose CSET team has been prominent in the community these past many months working with the homeless. Welcome, Sergeant LaFrance.
Thank you.
So can you briefly describe what the homeless survey is and why it's important?
So the homeless survey started back in 2018. We're just trying to get an understanding of exactly what we're doing with our homeless population, demographically, reasons why they're homeless, drug and alcohol addiction issues, mental health issues, physical disability issues, to see underlying causes also to kind of help address those overall. And the survey will be going on every 2 years now.
So you'll be doing it again every 2 years and sort of updating the numbers. One of the questions I wanted to ask is, anecdotally, it seems like people are saying that there's more homeless or that there seems to be more of a homeless presence downtown. According to what you've seen, has the homeless population evolved over the years, or are we looking at basically static numbers?
So I pulled the numbers from the point in time count, which are somewhat controversial. The numbers are still pretty close. Definitely during COVID, we're seeing a lot more homeless people on the street because there's not as many open businesses. So they're often in the backdrop of normal life. And so there's no longer anyone walking around or businesses open or people going to restaurants or shopping. And so they're much more prominent, especially places like Old Town. You're actually seeing them now.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there has been a recent spate of closures of hotels and apartment buildings, the Floyd Squires properties, for example. Have you found that that's impacted the number of homeless, or is that just, sort of a non-issue?
I don't really know how big of an issue it has been. I know the surveys I did, and working with the homeless every day, I haven't seen a whole lot of people saying they lost their housing because of like a Squires building. That's not one of the reasons we're finding right now. A lot of the folks that were living in those places, they did find housing elsewhere that I'm aware of. And also many of those folks are part of the couch surfing community. And so they probably are staying at a friend's house, which is likely, but not truly on the street or sleeping in a vehicle or at one of the shelters, from what I'm seeing.
Yeah. We were talking beforehand, and you were saying that a lot of who you see on the street right now are the extremely mentally ill and the severely addicted. Is that true?
Absolutely. So when COVID-19 came back in March 13th to 16th, a lot of the folks that were homeless that could get shelter, they got into shelters. They were able to stay with someone or back with family. But the ones on the streets right now are the truly, truly mentally ill, severe mental illness. We see it every day. The folks that have severe addiction issues, folks that are in really bad shape, they just can't advocate for themselves right now.
So can you sort of describe from your perspective what some of the difficulties are in helping people under those conditions to seek help and to seek guidance in getting a home or a job?
So in normal conditions, the system is very difficult to work with. We can't force people to get assistance. Obviously, for mental illness, there are ways to get people assistance, but ultimately, if they choose not to go that way, it's very difficult to actually get them the help that they actually need. Obviously, with some drug use, substance abuse, a little bit easier, we can use the court system to push people towards treatment. But again, it comes down to if they want to do it or not. But again, we want to be there every day to open the door for them and say, hey, we actually want to help you out, make your life a better place, which improves the community also.
So can you describe for us briefly what the difference in approach is for a CSET team member versus a regular patrol cop? What's the difference in philosophy and approach that marks this effort out from things that have been done before?
Yeah, so CSET, we're primarily working in Old Town and the waterfront and parks. We primarily work with the homeless population. We are a proactive unit. So that means that most of the time, 85% of the time right now, we are proactively contacting people on a daily basis, either on foot, on bikes, in vehicles, just checking with people, see how they're doing. It could be someone that we know on the streets who has a mental illness. We're just checking with them, see if they're ready for assistance, or just say hi to them every single day, and just that simple simple contact, daily contact, kind of builds that bridge with them. And then, of course, about the other 15%, we do respond to calls for service. Many of those calls are often involving part of the homeless community, or they're people that are having mental health crisis. And so with our team, we come with a lot of resources and connections. We're connected with the county behavioral health for the past several years now with the MISS program, also with many other nonprofit organizations and for-profit organizations. So we have lots of resources we can bring in to take that individual approach because everyone's so unique.
Yeah. Now, this is the age of COVID, and you're dealing with a subset of the population where there are significant health issues. How do you, on your patrols, identify people who may be infected as different from people who are just normally sick? And what do you do if you find someone who you think might be infected?
So primarily with our homeless population, every single day, 80% of the population based on our homeless survey actually goes to Free Meal or St. Vincent's de Paul free dining facility located over at A and 3rd Street. And so we actually brief every morning with the folks that are in line to get food. We check in with them, make sure if people are coughing or sneezing, have runny noses, or have symptoms. We actually have a checklist we go through with them to actually move them towards assistance through Open Door. We have a direct number to them.
Excellent. Now, in recent weeks, we've been going through the Black Lives Matter protests, and you're a police officer who actually engages in some of the work that people have been indicating they'd like police to do rather than just pure enforcement. I'd like to ask how some of the rhetoric surrounding the issue has impacted you personally, And what do you think people need to know about the police that maybe it's been lost in all the noise?
For me personally, again, I'm gonna speak for myself. It's been pretty rough. You will often find me on foot in Old Town, walking around, talking to business owners, talking to citizens, talking to the homeless, engaging people on daily conversation. Obviously, if there's an issue, I address it. But for the most part, I walk around and talk with people and just engage them. And so the past couple of weeks have been pretty rough. Occasionally, it seems like every day, someone will confront us, or if I'm walking by, ask them how they're doing. Some lady told me she was scared, and I'm like, "Why are you scared?" She's like, "'Cause I have a gun near me." I'm like, I asked her, why she was fearful, and she said because I was like, "I'm a cop," and I asked her, "Hey, do you know what I actually do, or who I am, or anything?" And the kind of unit I work with, and it didn't really matter to her what I do for my profession, just the fact I'm a law enforcement officer with a firearm, not the fact that I work with people that are very downtrodden, addicted, mentally ill, that are suffering, and that we actually try to get assistance with. It didn't matter. So yeah, it's not been easy the past couple weeks at all. It's been discouraging some days, but still, we still get out there. Our people out there, they need us. We need to help them out because they can't advocate for themselves, and so we still show up every single day for them. But it can be very discouraging at times.
Yeah. Is there anything that you think that people need to understand about the officers on the beat that maybe is getting missed in all this discussion? Something that might make them maybe more sympathetic?
I guess I'm not looking for sympathy, but for Eureka Police Department, we are very progressive in our policing. We're very modernized. I think ever since Chief Mills came in years ago, passed the torch off to Chief Watson. Very progressive agency. You're not going to find any unit similar to mine anywhere in Northern California. That we're so embedded with the homeless population. We have resources as in mental health working with us, social workers working with us. We've already had de-escalation. I'm the lead instructor for de-escalation for the city of Eureka. Implicit bias training has been going on for several years for us. So we're way ahead of the curve than most agencies.
2 to 1.
Well, that's all the time we have for now, Sergeant LaFrance. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your perspective, and thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Last week, Humboldt County Sheriff William Honsal described an existing partnership between area law enforcement and mental health services in the community. A cooperative arrangement meant to help officers negotiate with distraught individuals and diffuse potentially violent episodes. This week, Eureka Police Department demonstrated how well this system can work. According to a press release, at around 11:45 a.m. on Thursday, officers responded to a call on Waterfront Drive where a male suspect was reported to be vandalizing a wall with spray paint. According to police, upon arrival, they found the suspect swinging a machete. When approached, he fled on foot east on the Waterfront Trail. Officers followed and soon located him hiding under the Blue Ox Millworks building. As they tried to communicate with the suspect, officers found a backpack containing the machete as well as an axe. The suspect retreated further under the building, barricading himself in a corner of the Pier and Post Foundation. County mental health staff responded to the scene and assisted with negotiations. The male eventually surrendered and was detained and transported to mental health for further evaluation. Charging decisions will be made by the Humboldt County District Attorney's Office. North Coast Congressman Jared Huffman interviewed a renowned expert epidemiologist this week as part of his ongoing podcast, Off the Cuff. Dr. Larry Brilliant of Marin County is considered to be one of the top minds in fighting disease and had a direct hand in eliminating smallpox from the world. Brilliant was candid in his conversation with Huffman, detailing precisely when he knew that the U.S. response would be insufficient to the problem.
Well, we can go into the specifics of what went wrong with the test kits or believing that the pandemic was going to disappear in April or that the heat was going to kill it or that bleach would cure it, all those things. But to me, the most important image that I have is something which took place actually in the Bay Area. When the Diamond Princess cruise ship wanted to dock to let out and come home hundreds of Marin and San Francisco residents, and to let them come out of the ship and come back to their homes because they tested negative, or if they had tested positive, or they needed to be quarantined. And Trump said, don't let them touch American shores, because if they do, those cases will be counted against me and my numbers will look bad. That is the defining image for me of why we have not responded as well as we should have.
Coronavirus, while not as deadly as its more dreaded cousins smallpox and Ebola, is particularly dangerous because it combines the most effective attributes of those other diseases.
The asymptomatic rate isn't as high as it is in other diseases, and the pre-symptomatic spread is not so unusual. What's unusual is that as a respiratory disease, our first thought is to compare it to flu instead of comparing it to these other respiratory diseases like smallpox, which is also a respiratory disease. And like smallpox, COVID affects almost every cell in the body. We joke and say it affects you nose to toes because you lose your sense of smell often and your sense of taste, but it also affects your heart, your lungs, your kidney, and even your toes and your fingers, because it has some effect on the circulatory system that we haven't quite mapped out yet.
Brilliant told Huffman he believes a mistake has been made in opening our societies up so quickly after encountering COVID. We will end up paying a price for this, he warned.
Point number one, social distancing works. Point number two, we're not anywhere close to a time when we should be relaxing. I wish we were. I wish that this epidemic curve looked like Mount Shasta, where the angle of the incline was equal to the angle of the decline, or Mount Fuji. But it doesn't. It looks more like rolling waves of a tsunami. And right behind the first wave is another wave, and then another. While we have a break, a plateau, or a trough in those waves, that's not the time to take our foot off of the gas. If we find every case, contact trace, find all the people who are shedding virus, and we quarantine them, which is about 1 or 2% of the population, then we can open up the rest of the population. But that's not what we're doing. And we will all pay the price for that, because this disease is not limited just to the states in which it begins. It will, in fact, reinfect the rest of the country and the rest of the world.
A petition with more than 20,000 signatures demanding the expulsion of 2 HSU students has been circulating for the past week. The 2 students, Marley Perry and Will Blome, were seen in a racist video circulating on social media. The 14-second clip shows 2 young men and a young woman repeatedly saying the N-word. The petition was started by a fellow student, junior Michaela Harris, according to the Eureka Times-Standard. HSU responded to the video by promising to investigate and by suspending the 2 from their respective athletic and fraternal activities. Quote, basic decency and campus protocols demand a swift investigation, which is already underway, unquote, the press release stated. The posts surfaced at a time of deep pain for the black community. Such behavior and the white supremacist culture that provides cover for it does not reflect HSU values, and we condemn it, the statement reads. We'll be back after this short message.
Next time on Australia's first 4 billion years.
So this seems to be how the animal invasion of the land began.
Life storms the beaches and dominates planet Earth. Ancient Australian fossils offer clues to how we got our start.
Now this is something truly special, a living link to our fossil past.
Life explodes on Australia's first 4 billion years on Nova.
How old are these boulders?
2.5 billion years old.
Really? This is chaos! Fossil bacteria! Yeah!
Pass it through my hands while I pray.
This is how science happens! What an exciting time to be a geologist.
It's always an exciting time to be a geologist.
I never realized that the world could open up in this way.
This is North Coast Perspectives. I'm James Faulk. Humboldt County Sheriff Honsal, in his weekly comments to the media, indicated that while the wearing of masks is a public health necessity, his department is not in the business of checking every face and interrogating the maskless.
We have not issued any citation for people not wearing a mask out in public. You know, it's mostly about education. We do have educational cards that we hand out to people that aren't wearing the masks. People have provided the sheriff's office and other law enforcement masks to hand out to people if we find someone without a mask. And so we want to just, again, enforce this as an educational component about, you know, keeping others safe by wearing a mask. And I know that there are businesses that saying you cannot come in the store and shop if you're a customer if you're not wearing a mask. So that is happening out there, and we just ask people to be respectful and also understand too that there are people with ADA issues that can't wear masks. So we don't want people pointing fingers and saying you should be wearing a mask. You don't know the circumstances, the reason why they're not wearing a mask. But again, if you're concerned, please wear a mask. Please protect yourself that way, and that's the best advice we can give.
Honsal also spoke to how deputies are being impacted by all the controversy surrounding the death of George Floyd and the resulting anger at law enforcement. Honsal said it's law enforcement's job to protect people and to gain their trust.
A vast majority of the citizens appreciate us. We want to share the cards that we're receiving. People are giving us cards, dropping off meals for us, and then also telling us that we're doing a fantastic job out there. Again, our law enforcement officers are dealing with people's worst days every day. That's their job. That's what 911 is steered towards. And so when they're going to an emergency call for service every day, dealing with those worst moments, they're doing it with integrity. They're doing it, by the book, and so I'm proud of our deputy sheriffs. I'm proud of our law enforcement officers in the community, law enforcement chiefs. I think we want to prove to our own community and California and the United States that law enforcement officers are here to protect and are here to serve, and we can do it with distinction and integrity throughout.
Eureka Mayor Susan Seaman, in her weekly video release, outlined the recent decision by the City Council to extend the eviction moratorium.
On Monday, the City Council passed an extension of the eviction moratorium for renters through July 28th, reflecting the state's extension. This ordinance temporarily bans the eviction of tenants who cannot pay rent due to COVID-19 and offers protection for tenants who have lost income due to becoming ill or caring for a family member who is ill with the virus, a layoff, or reduction in hours due to the emergency response, or because they have to stay home to care for children. Additionally, the ordinance also suspends the shutoff of water service for commercial and residential tenants due to non-payment during the COVID-19 emergency. In order to qualify for delayed payments, tenants must notify their landlord in writing of lost income and their inability to pay the full rent. They must also provide documentation to support their claim. As a city, we want to assure that people do not lose their basic and essential needs like housing at this difficult time. We're also concerned that deferring payments until a later date will result in hardship for renters who will be facing larger back payments for each month they defer. To that end, the City of Eureka is providing a grant program designed to assist individuals needing support in paying rent or mortgage payments due to a reduction in income from COVID-19. The fund will allow low to moderate income renters in the City of Eureka up to 2 months' rent or $2,500. You can learn more about the eviction moratorium guidelines and the COVID-19 Assistance Fund at the City of Eureka's website, ci.eureka.ca.gov.
We'll be right back.
I think there's something brilliant about what Marion Stokes did.
She became aware of the power of television to misinform people.
And I think maybe a re-examination of what is normal is in order at this point.
Taping these programs was a form of activism.
She hit record and she never stopped.
She was very, very much ahead of her time.
Recorder, the Marion Stokes Project.
This is North Coast Perspectives. KEAT Director Charity Grella continues her conversation with folks from Food for People as they describe the hard work and reward that comes from keeping their community fed.
I think it's an awesome program for people who are on the streets or can't unemployed.
For some people, it might be, transportation issues, especially rural areas of the community. If you have to travel 20, 30 miles to the nearest access point and you don't have reliable transportation, that's a huge barrier and something we're looking at a lot. And for other people, it might be the stigma. No one ever pictures themselves as someone who's going to need to use a food bank. And even if it could help them, stay stable financially, all sorts of things, it's getting to that point where they feel comfortable coming and asking for the help. So that's something we're always trying to encourage is anyone can use a little help sometimes. It's better to ask for it now so you can stay stable, healthy instead of getting to a point later on where things are a lot more dire. First off, we're here for anyone and everyone who needs the help. So if you have never needed food bank assistance before, don't know if you can get to it or you qualify, please give us a call at 445-3166. We can talk you through what different programs we have, what might work best. You can also go online to foodforpeople.org, where we list all of our upcoming distributions, our different programs. Just really encourage people to, think of the food bank when things are getting a little tough, because it's a good resource that's there for the community. So if it helps people stay stable, if you're choosing between rent, food, transportation, the food bank can help take a little bit of that weight off. So I want to really encourage people to think of the food bank. We're here for the community.
One of Humboldt County's most beloved artistic institutions will take a bit of a breather this summer as it struggles to handle the costs and limitations brought on by the COVID epidemic. Managing Director Alyssa Hewlett said that by dimming their lights these next few months, Del Arte will be in a stronger position to welcome its students and community back when school returns to session next fall. A majority of staff and faculty will be furloughed starting next week. The intention, according to a press release, is to bring them all back. That's it for tonight. Thanks for joining us. For information on all things COVID, remember to visit www.humboldtgov.org for all the stats and figures on local cases, fresh guidelines, and information on how to best weather this pandemic. Stay tuned, stay informed, and stay healthy.
Next time on Australia's first 4 billion years.
So this seems to be how the animal invasion of the land began.
Life storms the beaches and dominates planet Earth. Ancient Australian fossils offer clues to how we got our start.
This is something truly special, a living link to our fossil past.
Life explodes on Australia's first 4 billion years on Nova.
How old are these boulders?
2.5 billion years old.
Really? This is chaos! Fossil bacteria! Yeah!
Pass it through my hands while I pray.
This is how science happens! What an exciting time to be a geologist.
It's always an exciting time to be a geologist.
I never realized that the world could open up in this way.